Welcome back to another Mike Rant. In honor of The Good Dinosaur having come out within the past couple of weeks, I thought I would do a quick review of The Good Dinosaur and list some of my favorite Pixar films based on certain criteria. Now, this is the first time that Pixar has done 2 movies in 1 year, so cut them a little bit of slack, especially considering how great Inside Out was. The Good Dinosaur is not as good as Inside Out. It was very honest and very, it was very simple, but it didn't reach the height that most Pixar films reach. Basically, after Act 1 was over, there was a little period of time that seemed to drag on for too long where not a lot happened. But one major thing that really, really hit me and still provided a tear-jerking moment was a moment in the film, which if you haven't seen The Good Dinosaur, don't watch the rest of this because spoilers. Although I can't place The Good Dinosaur that high on my regular list, which my list of from least favorite to favorite Pixar films are Cars 2, then The Good Dinosaur, then Brave. Yes, Brave beat The Good Dinosaur. Cars, Bugs Life, Monsters University, Ratatouille, WALL-E, The Incredibles, Toy Story 3, Up, Inside Out, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, Toy Story, and then Toy Story 2. Now, this is just my personal list, but I've also created a list based on the tear-jerking moments in the film. At number 16, we have Cars 2, which really, the major sad part in that is when Mater realizes that Finn thinks that Mater's personality is all a ruse. He thinks that Mater is actually a genius super agent who's acting like an idiot, when in reality, that's actually Mater's personality. Next, true to the list that I had before, is Brave, when Merida addresses her entire kingdom and her mom as the bear is watching. This is a very, very funny scene, but it's also the scene where Merida really takes responsibility. Ratatouille is next on the list. That's number 14. Sort of the same as Brave. It's really when his dad finally accepts him. Linguini, the entire kitchen leaves. There's no hope. Although the speech by Linguini before, followed by everyone leaving, is a very, very emotional moment. But in terms of the main character, that is really the biggest moment in it. Similar to Ratatouille is number 13, which is The Incredibles, which doesn't really have a very tear-jerking moment to it. But when when Bob tells his family, well, mainly Helen, that he can't stand to lose them again, so he has to fight this robot by himself. He's taking responsibility for his actions, and he's taking care of his family as well. Number 12 is sort of a preliminary number 12, because I'm sure it will go lower on the list as I get older, but considering the fact that I am in college now, Monsters University is number 12, next on the list, when Sully and Mike are sitting by the lake and admitting that there are certain aspects to them that are weak. They learn the difference between confidence and reality, and how you can have confidence, but you have to work hard at something. Things may not work out. Life happens. And it's pretty deep for a Pixar film, considering that they are family movies. For all the little kids that are there, they don't really understand the concept, and parents have been out of the college loop, so to speak. They have families now, so they've been out of that for a while. So to have something like that kind of a message in a Pixar film was actually pretty impressive in my opinion. Now, number 11, in the film that I'm referring to is WALL-E. You could sort of argue that the emotional moment is when Eve figures out that WALL-E has been taken care of for all that time, which is why his death is so sad, because it contributes to that selflessness and the fact that it was done all with no dialogue except for her name constantly. I think that was a really, really smart thing that they did. Number 10 is Bugs Life, which the true emotional moment for me, there are moments of sadness, but the true emotional moment, the pivotal point of the film, is when Hopper is pushing Flick around, he's knocking him over, everybody's watching, none of the ants are doing anything about it because it's a grasshopper, what are they going to do? And Flick finally stands up completely weak and says that we don't serve the grasshoppers. The grasshoppers need the ants, which provokes Ada to go over to Hopper and proclaim that the ants are going to keep their own food and the grasshoppers are going to get out of there. And then they inspire the ants to attack the grasshoppers, which, as Hopper explained earlier in the film, outnumber them 100 to 1. Number 9 is Cars. And the pivotal moment, which has multiple layers to it, and that's what's great about Pixar, is that it's not just an emotional moment because of what happens, it's because of what's happened. And that moment is when Lightning McQueen throws the race, lets Chick Hicks win, and goes to the broken down and battered up King. He goes and thinks that the King should be able to finish his last race and pushes him across the finish line. He realized that Doc, who was once the Hudson Hornet, suffered a crash and nobody wanted him anymore. And that really, really is a defining moment in the film that I really, really love. And I think that for anybody who might be iffy about the film, and some people I know don't really like the film that much, watch the film and then keep that scene in mind, because that is a very, very huge scene in the film. Okay, number 8, though it might surprise you, is Toy Story. But don't worry, there are 3 movies, so as we go up, you'll see why Toy Story is only at number 8. Because while there are very emotional scenes, Woody finally accepting Buzz as his friend, and the part that I've chosen as the emotional moment, when Buzz finally flies. The emotion tied into it, how this has arced all the way, Buzz not being able to find his way as a spaceman, Woody not being able to let go of Andy, the music, just everything makes that the scene of Toy Story. Even if it doesn't make you cry, it's the triumphant success of both of them. Even though Buzz is the one that's physically flying, they are done, they are away from Scud, they are away from danger, they are in the air, and they are about to go land in the van next to Andy, where Andy is none the wiser about where they've been. Alright, now number 7. This is the only film that is so low on my regular list of Pixar films, but yet so high on the emotional moments list. And this is from The Good Dinosaur. So once again, if you have not seen this film and you don't want it to be spoiled, turn this video off right now. Because the moment in The Good Dinosaur is so emotional and so tragic that it is Pixar. This is the scene that makes it Pixar. It's actually a dual scene because it happens multiple times in the film. But what happens is that when Arlo, the dinosaur, meets this rabid human that he is basically serves as his pet, the two of them have to try to communicate with each other. So what they do is put little sticks in the ground representing their family, and they draw a circle around it to represent that is a unified family. And what Arlo does is he pushes one of the sticks down because, I'm sure this part isn't a spoiler to anybody, because his father dies. And the little boy, without even having said anything to Arlo, draws a circle, puts a bunch of sticks in the ground, and pushes all of them over but one. The scene is so powerful because it happens completely with very little dialogue, and it happens again at the end where, spoilers, the little boy finds, I don't know if it's his family or just a bunch of humans, he finds more humans, and Arlo does the exact same thing in order to convince him to go with them instead of staying with Arlo. So, very powerful scene, very a tear-jerking moment in that film, which, in a film that had a couple of lulls in it, that really redeemed it a little bit for me. And we got Toy Story 2, and how could anybody forget the big tear-jerking moment in Toy Story 2? Jesse's song, When Somebody Loved Me. I mean, Tom Hanks and Tim Allen, in the theater, having never have seen this, were crying like babies. I remember hearing this in an interview one time. I mean, I can't even say enough good things about it, because it's so obvious. The tragic nature of being a toy that isn't addressed in the first Toy Story because it's all about the rivalry between Woody and Buzz. You get to see the reality of, if these toys have a consciousness and they have emotions, what's going to happen when you just toss them off to the side like that? So, very, very influential and emotional scene in Toy Story 2. Alright, so now we're down to the top 5. These 5 are definitely the most emotional scenes in Pixar films. And at number 5 is Finding Nemo. And this one is sort of like The Good Dinosaur, a dual emotional scene. Because clearly one of the biggest emotional scenes in the film is when Coral, Marlin's wife, dies. But not only that, everything that's set up around it, the fact that she wanted to name a kid Nemo, the fact that they were so happy together, that Marlin was not as neurotic as he eventually becomes, the fact that she is not only gone, all of the children are gone, very little is spoken, and when something is spoken, it is Marlin vowing to his son that he's going to take care of him, and names him Nemo because that's what Coral would have wanted. And then it gets repeated by the end of the film when they think that Nemo is hurt or potentially dead. It comes full circle again, and it's just absolutely spectacular. Which leads to number 4, which while not low on the list of my favorite Pixar films, this is the highest that a newer Pixar film is on this list. And once again, if you haven't seen this movie, Inside Out, turn the video off because I know some people may not have seen it. But obviously the tear-jerking moment in Inside Out is when Bing Bong sacrifices himself. The imaginary friend sacrifices himself in order to get joy out of this pit of despair of all these lost memories in order to go save Riley. And not only does this represent a loss of a friend, a loss of innocence, and a loss of childhood, but the fact that he is still there somewhere, it gives this very odd feeling of hope that you can sort of channel, that you have to sort of remember your childhood. It so speaks to what Pixar is trying to replicate in creating relatable stories with relatable characters that can connect with children and adults. I don't think there's anything better. Except for these final 3, which are the ultimate, not only the ultimate emotional moments in Pixar films, but the saddest moments that I have ever had to sit through. At number 3, it's when Sully has to say goodbye to Boo. Anybody who grew up with Monsters, Inc., anybody who watches Monsters, Inc. now, will know that I don't even have to say anything except Sully returns Boo to her door and leaves. Everybody knows exactly all the things they've been through in the film, the relationship that they've formed, and how innocent that Boo is, and her trust that she's eventually placed in Sully. There's nothing... There's not many movies that can do that with just you referencing Sully says goodbye to Boo, with saying a couple of words that can trigger so much emotions. Which brings me to number 2, which when you didn't think that Pixar could get any more sad, we have Toy Story 3, when Andy leaves to college. And this is just, I mean, it's Andy leaving for college. Not only is this the last scene in Toy Story 3, it is prolonged. They're playing together. Andy thanks his toys. You see the close-ups of all the toys. Woody, who, despite everything they said in Toy Story 2, was actually potentially going to go with Andy to college. The fact that this has been built up over 3 films. 3 films this was built up. And it was just a humongously bittersweet moment that hopefully everyone who grew up with Toy Story takes with them and appreciates their toys and their childhood. Kind of going back to Inside Out, the fact that, keeping your childhood in mind. Hopefully everybody got something from that. Which leaves the number 1 saddest Pixar moment and one of the most brilliant moments ever in the history of filmmaking. Not just animated film, filmmaking. And if you've been tracking all the films that I've been listing, and also if you have any common sense whatsoever, you know where this is going. Number 1 saddest moment in a film, Up. Not only does Up transfer an entire relationship between 2 people in about, 5-6 minutes, they managed to make it one of the hardest things to watch and one of the biggest motivations for a film ever, and one of the greatest character setups as to why a certain character is the way that they are. The fact that they can go throughout an entire person's life, you feel like you know them, just from a little bit of dialogue with their childhood and just seeing where their relationship goes, everything that they do together, every little tiny detail that normally would just be mundane things, you're able to get based off of this relationship. Carl's wife Ellie worked at the zoo and he was a balloon salesman. They were going to have a baby. They lost that baby. The mailbox with the handprints on them, which was just a happy accident. It just absolutely magnificent filmmaking, and how could anything else be number 1 on my list? Well, I hope you guys go back and watch those scenes and cry your eyes out. I warn you, you should probably not watch all of them at once. That's also my small review of The Good Dinosaur. Thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.